All right, we're rolling.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So I'm really happy to see everybody again this week. As you guys already know, last week we went over the informed consent process and covered some questions and concerns relating to that. If for whatever reason you have any more questions or concerns, we can go after that, talk about that after group. So first we're just gonna start off with a little refresher for everyone. So I want you to introduce yourselves, starting with your name, how many kids you have, and how old they are.
My name is Joan, and I have 2 adult kids. One is 36 and one is 34.
My name is Luke. I have 3 kids, a daughter who is 1, and then 2 boys, 5 and 9.
My name is Josh, and I have one daughter who is 12.
All right, thanks so much for sharing. So, the goal of this group today is that we are gonna identify some stressors associated with being a parent. As we all know, being a parent, especially during this time with the pandemic and having them home for Christmas break, it can be quite stressful. So we're gonna go around the group, and I'm gonna make a list of the stressors. So we'll identify all those, take a look at it, and then we're gonna go around the group again and try to come up with some different healthy coping mechanisms that we can use to counteract these stressors that we face. So, I'll let you guys decide who wants to get started here. All right, Joan.
I would like to start with financial stressors, as having adult children that are trying to make it during the COVID and pandemic. And I've been fortunate enough to, have my job remain stable. So I've been able to help them out, but I worry and get concerned about finances because I don't have so many years before I'm looking at retiring. So financial stressors.
All right, thanks for sharing.
I think one of my biggest stressors is my boys argue a lot, and discipline has been hard with them being cooped up inside and not being able to go out and do things in the world that they normally were able to do prior to this, and even prior to that, just in general. So definitely discipline.
All right, thanks for sharing.
Let's see. My daughter struggles with her social at school, especially with COVID right now. She doesn't get any social time with friends, and she's kind of limited to the friends that live around the area.
Sure.
And so she doesn't get to talk to any other girls her age, and especially not being in school, that really isn't. She doesn't get that right now. So.
Okay. Good job. Those are some really key things that can definitely stress us out. Let's see if we can come up with a few more stressors. I'll give you an example. Say you're trying to get ready for work or school in the morning, and the kids are being very demanding. Does that cause stress for anyone, or a similar situation like that? Have you guys encountered something like that?
Absolutely. I work full time, so I'm not home in the mornings, but there are mornings that I do get phone calls, and my 2 boys definitely do that at home.
So we'll take that demanding behaviors. Is there anything else that anybody can think of, whether it's just a general stressor or something a little more specific that you deal with any of your children that would like to address today?
I would like to add that there's an emotional stressor for, especially with adult children, the emotional stressors of choices that they make that maybe concern me and worry me, and I have a hard time knowing how to cope with it.
I'm sure that's understandable, especially with adult children. You don't really necessarily have that control over the choices that they make compared to when you have younger children. You have a little more control over that situation. So definitely glad that you brought that up. So it looks like we have a nice list going here. So the next step in in group today is going to be addressing these different stressors and coming up with healthy ways that we can cope. So there's no right or wrong answers for these. It can be a very general coping mechanism, or it can be something more specific to your situation, because what's going to happen at the end of group, what we're going to do is each of you are going to pick a few different things from this list as far as the coping mechanisms go, and you're either going to take a picture of the list, or you're going to write down what you'd like to take home with you, because next week we're going to talk about how you implemented those different coping mechanisms and go over what worked, what didn't work, so on and so forth. So I'll just review what we came up with. So for stressors, we have financial, arguing, discipline, COVID/isolation associated with it, demanding behaviors, emotional stressors, and children's choices. So we don't have to go in any particular order. Whatever comes to mind, I'll let you guys decide who wants to start coming up with the coping mechanisms here.
I think for the financial, having a frank discussion, having
Communication.
the frank communication.
Okay. All right. What else can we come up with? Here's the list.
Well, for the isolation, I've just been trying to go back to the simple ways, maybe of like board games, and just trying to do things where they could get outside of their mind, so they're not just at least my kids, all they want to do for the most part is sit on a device of some sort, and I've noticed that if I can get them doing something else that's more productive other than just sitting on that, they seem to enjoy it. And I think sometimes they're just so used to doing it that they don't want to do other things like that. So I just try to get them to kind of break free of that and do new things.
That sounds like the art of distraction.
Yeah.
Can be a very good coping mechanism. Sounds like you've figured out a few ways to combat that, so that's good. What else can we think of?
I would say for children's choices, it's healthy to be able to say no to your children, especially having a single or being the only child. She tends to get her way. I mean, not that she's bossy or wants a lot, but I mean, I give in a lot because she is the only child and I don't have to worry about having other kids and their feelings involved. But when I do say no, sometimes that's a struggle because she's used to me saying yes. So now that she's getting older, she really does kind of become defiant towards that. But we just try and meet in the middle. And, if I do say no, explain why and the reason I said it,
That's a very good point. That's exactly what I was going to suggest, is that when you do start practicing saying no more in the home, I think it is very important that you explain why, and try to do it in terms that the children can relate to. So great. How about for arguing? That seems to be a pretty common stressor in any household. Anybody think of anything how you could maybe counteract some of the arguing that's going on?
What I've tried to do is to split them up. I've noticed that's really the first thing you can do, because normally the arguing is about meaningless things, or things that they're arguing about 1 minute, but the next minute they're happy. So I try to split them up and sometimes just get them on to something else, move them forward to something else, and that seems to help.
Oh, perfect.
Not always, but.
All right. Well, all you can do is try. I call that technique divide and conquer. With that, once you divide them up, you can go back after a few minutes and ask them if they're ready to come back together, and then If they are, great, you can let them, do what they were doing. If they show that they can't come together and play nice together or whatever they're doing together, then you can start the process over and just keep doing that until they understand
Right.
the process and what's going to happen if they can't figure out how to problem solve and get along. Of course, we've got to take the ages into consideration there, but I think that's a really good technique. How about Joan? You mentioned emotional.
Mhm.
What's something that you could do for yourself to manage those
Going for
emotions?
walks. I figure
Walks?
that exercise is a
Yes.
huge thing. If I can get myself outside, especially outside, like outdoor activities, just kind of clears my head just in general.
I don't know if you guys know this, but it is very highly recommended to engage in physical activities, especially when you're feeling stressed out or depressed or anxious, because what happens is that your body releases natural endorphins. So just even going for a 10-minute walk will boost your mood a little bit. So that's a great way to handle that. We've just got a few more here. We're doing really good. We have left discipline and demanding behaviors. So, who wants to tackle one of those?
I think discipline needs to fit the age of the children. I know that's not really a fix, but I think that if you have a 1-year-old versus a 12-year-old, you're going to have very different problems, and how you handle that's really important.
Sure, and there's all sorts of resources. I mean, it could be as simple as going on